Now this is some spooky stuff. I'm your host Yusuf, and these are 10 scary things you didn't know about the Freeway Phantom. Make sure to subscribe and ring that bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. Anyways, let's get on the freeway. Number 10. The Phantom struck at night. The Freeway Phantom operated exclusively at night. The young women he targeted were usually abducted late at night or early in the morning when they were alone and vulnerable. This made it seem like the criminal was targeting his victims specifically, as it was much easier for him to stalk and abduct them when they were alone in the dark. The randomness of the abductions added to the fear and uncertainty around the case, as it seemed like the butcher was able to operate undetected and that anyone could be his next victim. This led to people being afraid to leave their homes at night, especially young women who are the primary targets of the perpetrator, which we'll get into later. The feelings surrounding the case were compounded by the fact that the butcher was able to operate for several years without being caught. The fact that the Freeway Phantom was operating at night also made it difficult for the police to catch him. The lack of witnesses and the fact that the butcher was able to operate in the dark made it difficult for the police to gather evidence and build a case against him. The lack of progress in the case made it seem like the butcher was able to operate with impunity. The fear of the Freeway Phantom was amplified by the fact that he was able to operate in the dark where most people were most vulnerable. The thought that a violent serial ender was lurking in the shadows ready to strike at any moment made the community in DC at the time very terrified. Number 9. The victims were all young. The Freeway Phantom preyed on young African American women, with the oldest person he hurt being only 22.
April 25th, 1971, 13-year-old Carol Spinks went out to buy groceries. 6 days later, police found her body dumped along I-295.
This made the case particularly horrifying, as the victims were innocent young girls who were taken before they even had a chance to experience life. The youth of the victims adds to the tragedy of the case, as they were taken at a time when they should have been safe and enjoying their lives. The fact that the butcher specifically targeted young women makes the case even more disturbing, as it suggests that he had a specific motive or interest in young victims. Number 8. He was never caught. Despite intense efforts by police and the public, the Freeway Phantom was never caught. The lack of progress in the case and the fact that the butcher was able to operate undetected for several years despite the intense media coverage and public outrage made it seem like the butcher was able to just ignore the law. The police had several leads in the case, but none of them led to a concrete suspect. Despite extensive searches and investigation, the man was never caught back then. The fact that the Freeway Phantom was able to evade the police for so long made it seem like the guy was able to operate undetected and that anyone could be his next victim.
Investigators found a note in Brenda Woodward's pocket taunting them. "This is tantamount to my insensitivity to people, especially women," he wrote. "I will admit the others when you catch me, if you can."
The fear of the unknown and the fear that the criminal was still out there, free to strike again, lingered many years after the last known removal of life he committed. Number 7. He was violent. The executions were brutal, with the victims being strangled and sometimes abused. This added to the sense of horror surrounding the ordeal, as it seemed like the criminal was not just taking lives, but also violating their bodies. The level of violence used in the case suggests that the criminal had a deep-seated anger and a desire to inflict pain and suffering on his victims. This level of violence also makes the case even more frightening, as it suggests that the man was dangerous and unpredictable. Number 6. He was meticulous. The Freeway Phantom was meticulous in his crimes. The young women he targeted were usually abducted late at night or early in the morning, and he always made sure to leave no trace of evidence behind. This made it seem like the butcher was highly organized and that he had planned each of his crimes in advance, making it difficult for the police to track him down. The Freeway Phantom was also meticulous in his choice of victims, targeting young women who were alone and vulnerable. This made it seem like he had a specific type of person in mind and that he was targeting his victims specifically. It seemed like the butcher was able to identify and target his victims with ease, making it difficult for anyone to stay safe. The fact that the Freeway Phantom was meticulous in his crimes also made it difficult for the police to catch him. The lack of evidence and the fact that the butcher was able to leave no trace behind made it difficult for the police to build a case against him. The fear of the Freeway Phantom was amplified by the fact that he was meticulous in his crimes. Number 5. The body dumps were random. The body dumps of the Freeway Phantom's victims were random and scattered. The young women were usually found in remote areas, often far from where they were abducted, making it seem like the butcher was deliberately trying to hide his tracks.
A monster unleashed. Parents warned children in Southeast, so police say the Phantom went northwest and grabbed 10-year-old Brenda Crockett. Then northeast for 12-year-old Nanamoshia Yates. 18-year-old Brenda Woodward was last seen alive at a bus stop on M Street Northeast.
This made it difficult for the police to piece together what had happened and to track down the butcher. The randomness of the body dumps also made it seem like the butcher was unpredictable and that he was operating with complete disregard for the law. The fact that the bodies were found in remote areas far from where they were abducted made it seem like the butcher was trying to distance himself from the crime scene, making it difficult for the police to find any clues or evidence. The fear of the Freeway Phantom was amplified by the randomness of the body dumps. Number 4. The victims were from different areas. The victims of the Freeway Phantom were from different areas, which made it difficult for authorities to identify a common link between them. The 6 young women who were confirmed to have been ended by the Freeway Phantom came from different neighborhoods and had different backgrounds. Some of the victims lived in the Washington, D.C. area, while others lived in nearby suburbs. This diversity among the victims made it difficult for authorities to identify a common link between them and to determine why the Freeway Phantom might have targeted them. Some investigators speculated that the butcher might have been targeting young women who were similar in appearance or who lived in certain areas. However, the fact that the victims were from different areas made it difficult to determine if this was indeed the case. This diversity among the victims of the Freeway Phantom also made it difficult for the authorities to identify potential witnesses or to find other leads in the case. Since the victims came from different areas, they likely had different social circles and routines, which made it more challenging to find people who might have seen something or who had information about the butcher. Despite these challenges, the fact that the victims of the Freeway Phantom were from different areas highlights the need for continued investigation into the case. By continuing to examine the evidence and to look for new leads, we can gain a better understanding of the motivations and methods of this dangerous butcher, and hopefully bring closure to the families of his victims.
You know, basically I just say that I hope she's okay. I'm sure she is.
Number 3, he may have ended more. The Freeway Phantom may have actually ended more people than the authorities initially suspected. Despite the fact that 6 young women were confirmed to have been ended by the Freeway Phantom, there's evidence to suggest that the butcher might have claimed more victims. For example, several other young women went missing in the Washington, D.C. area around the same time as the confirmed victims of the Freeway Phantom, and their bodies were never found. It is possible that the Freeway Phantom was responsible for these disappearances, as the young women fit the profile of his usual victims. However, without more concrete evidence, it is difficult to confirm whether or not the Freeway Phantom was indeed responsible for these additional disappearances. There is also the possibility that the Freeway Phantom might have committed crimes outside of Washington, D.C., as serial butchers often travel from place to place in order to avoid detection. It is possible that the Freeway Phantom might have claimed additional victims in other parts of the country. But without more concrete evidence, this is impossible to confirm. The fact that the Freeway Phantom might have ended more people than initially suspected is a sobering thought, and highlights the need for continued investigation into the case. Despite the passage of time, it is important to keep searching for answers and to keep working to solve this unsolved case. By continuing to investigate the Freeway Phantom case, we can gain a better understanding of the motivations and methods of this dangerous butcher and hopefully bring closure to the families of the victims. Number 2, the case has gone cold. Despite initial leads and intense media coverage, the case has gone cold and no significant progress has been made in recent years. This means that the butcher is still out there, and that justice has not been served for the families of the victims. The fact that the case has gone cold also raises questions about the resources that have been dedicated to it and the priority that it has been given, making it seem like the Freeway Phantom case has been forgotten by the authorities. Number 1, the fear still lingers. The fear and impact of the Freeway Phantom case still lingers in the Washington, D.C. area even today. Despite the passage of time and the fact that the case has gone cold, as said just now, many people still remember the case. The Freeway Phantom is a stark reminder of the evil that can exist in the world and of the dangers that can lurk in our own communities. The unsolved nature of the Freeway Phantom case only adds to its impact and the fear that it continues to evoke. The fact that the butcher was never caught and that the case remains unsolved means that the fear and uncertainty surrounding the case continues to linger, even today. People are still left wondering what happened to the 6 young women who were executed, and the thought that their butcher is still out there somewhere only adds to the fear and impact of the case. The legacy of the Freeway Phantom continues to be felt in the Washington, D.C. area, and the case remains a haunting reminder of the dangers that can exist in our own communities. The impact of the Freeway Phantom is a testament to the importance of continuing to investigate unsolved crimes, and to the need for law enforcement to be vigilant in their efforts to protect the public. By remembering the case and continuing to investigate it, we can work to bring closure and to ensure that the fear and impact of the Freeway Phantom case does not linger for future generations. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and comment if you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next time on Crime Time.